time to take a look at the big stories making the front pages of the newspapers this morning. This day, our sister publication, its big story, Bayero constituting security risk in Kano. He should be evacuated. That's coming from the state government as Deputy Governor yields to wisdom, apologizes to NSA over alleged interest in the Emirate crisis. Leading photo, one of the photos on the front page of this day, just at the bottom, is that of the President GCEO, Dr. Owen Omogiafo, with the chairman Tony Elumelu at the 18th annual general meeting of Transnational Corporation Transcorp in Abuja yesterday. At the top there, you see a photo of presidential candidate of Labour Party Peter Obi with some U.S. officials. Obi says, "I will accept a merger." If you want to know more on that story, get a copy of This Day. That's on page 9. At the top of the name of This Day newspaper this morning, Onyago, that's the Group Managing Director, CEO, Zenith Bank, caps stellar tenure with 2024 Banking CEO of Year in Africa Awards.
Let's look at the Punch newspaper. On its front page, first anniversary, Tinubu government awards 6 trillion naira contracts for roads, others. Roads, airport projects, top 51 infrastructure contracts in 8 months. Power, 12 billion naira spent annually on airports. FG, they're considering solar. Children's Day, the president, governors promise better future. AGF wrong to join Lagos in LG fund suit. This is coming from the governor of Lagos State, Sanwo-Olu. And on the top mast, Emirate tussle, court orders Bayero's eviction. Kano says deposed emir a threat. And Dangote refinery eyes 500,000 barrel production capacity in July.
The New Telegraph this morning, its big story, federal government suspends Air Nigeria indefinitely. Our aviation minister Kano says it was Ethiopian Airlines trying to fly our flag. More stories from the New Telegraph. Fabemi says this is discussing why state electoral commissions should be scrapped. Meanwhile, a Kano court stops Bayero others from parading themselves as emirs. That's the New Telegraph.
The Vanguard, Labour private sector operators bicker over minimum wage. Organized Labour's 497 naira demand unrealistic. The presidency adds affordability key to arriving at any figure. NLC 6 minimum wage for journalists in Nigeria, cautions against harassment by security agencies. AGF orders to NAS, change of anthem by legislative fiat can't work. And then the top master, pay Genco's 1.3 trillion debt to avoid sector's collapse. Elumelu tells FG Edeguba more trouble for LP as two excos emerge. AGF advocates scrapping of state electoral bodies and conflicting court orders trail Kano Emirate tussle.
On the front page of Business Day, they have a special report. Naira falls, external reserves dip despite FX reforms. Meanwhile, supermarkets see bumper sales and faster deliveries and credit offerings. Revenue hit 6-year high in 2023. And in South Africa, election, ANC faces biggest test since Mandela. That's Business Day.
The Guardian Nigeria, Nigerians are really spending on data. Amid penetration surge, Nigerians spent over 500 billion naira on data in Q1 and AG suspends for Nigeria Air indefinitely. Insecurity knocks kudos for Tinubu as government marks first anniversary. Children's Day, 39.2% of Nigerian kids in child labor.
Quickly, some international papers. The Times this morning, City figures back Labour with call for new outlook. Meanwhile, there's a warning of civil unrest over EU border rules. That's the Time.
The Mirror, Daily Mirror, Starmer tells voters you can end Tory chaos.
Let's take a look at the Citizens from South Africa. On the polls, all you need to know from the ANC and Democratic Alliance doing damage control to last gasp messages from Rize Mzansi, promising to cut crime, and the opposition leader John throwing his weight behind businesses and entrepreneurs. That's their special story. On the front page of The Citizen, as South Africans go to the poll tomorrow.
Yep, Daily Express, the scandal on the post office probe is not over yet. Police deploy 80 detectives. I am on your side. PM pledges bumper pension rise.
All right. For some analysis, let's bring in Dr. Constance Ikoku, who joins us this morning. Dr. Ikoku, thank you so much for being here with us. Let's jump right into it this morning. The front page of This Day, I think also on the front page of the Punch newspaper, you have that story developing in Kano State. Bayero constituting security risk in Kano. He should be evacuated. This is coming from the state government. In the front page of Punch, it's talking about that emir tussle and court ordering Bayero and the other deposed emirs to stop parading themselves as so. Dr. Constance, what are your thoughts in this story?
Yeah, good morning, Indy, and I was about to call you at this one.
Happened.
Get Yeah, so good morning, yes. High stakes politics going on in Kano State. There we saw it, over the weekend. Like you said, it's a developing story. It's continuing. The governor and his deputy, the State House of Assembly, took a huge political risk and upturned all their predecessor did, former Governor Alhaji Ganduje. And so, they deposed the emir and repealed the law also that created 5 new emirates. And what had happened is that some people see this as a coup. Why? Because the emir that was deposed at the Bayero was not in town when all this happened. And so he got wind of it and he flew in. By the time he got in, they had brought in the new emir, installed him in the palace, and there was literally nothing he could do. And then you do not expect him and his supporters to lie low. They tried to make a little bit of a trouble, tried to see whether they could get some support from the federal government for him to come back into the main palace. And there were a little bit of a crisis, or there was a little bit of a crisis over the weekend. Now that is petering, and things are going back, so to speak, to normal. However, what will happen going forward is that, there's a huge mess that the governor and the new emir will have to clean out. These people, they're licking their wounds, but it's not going to go away completely. It will take time for this to heal. That's what we're going to see.
And you have 2 court orders, one on June 3, one on June 11.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes,
Watch
it is.
As
it is.
plays out. Let's go to the Vanguard newspaper. Vanguard says Labour private sector operators bicker over minimum wage. Organized Labour is asking 497. Says the demand unrealistic. The presidency, and they're also saying seeking minimum wage for journalists in Nigeria. Cautions against harassment by security agencies.
So this is a 3-way conversation between Labour, the private sector, and the government. So on the part of Labour, it says wages have to go up in line with current realities. Both, the 3 of them have well-grounded arguments. On the part of the private sector, what they are saying is that this policy, if there is an increase, it will also affect the private sector. And in this economy that is crippling, it will be difficult for private operators or businesses to also increase wages for workers. And then on the part of government, the argument is that there is low productivity in the civil service, the recurrent wage or expenditure is already very high, so it's difficult, or it will be difficult to absorb this massive increase that they are asking for. Labour initially demanded 615,000 naira. This has been reduced to 497,000, and the government and the private sector said this is ridiculous. In fact, the government specifically used the word outrageous. So what I think is that there will be talks. The Labour is not backing down. They will continue to speak, to negotiate on this. It's not easy on any side at all. I do not know how they're going to reach a middle ground, but that middle ground has to be reached at some point. So we will see more conversations going on on this topic.
There's more conversations coming back to that Air Nigeria. We've been talking about it. Now the Minister of Aviation says, look, we're suspending this Air Nigeria project indefinitely. He says it was just Ethiopian Air aiming to fly our national flag, and that Air Nigeria should be indigenous. Do you agree with him? And this also comes just at the back of that report that says over 80-something billion has been budgeted for this project in the past 7 years.
Nkechi, this development is not surprising at all. You know, the suspension of Nigeria Air. That project was shrouded in secrecy. You know, we weren't sure of the details of what was going on. To the extent that some people actually felt it was an outright scam. And I think that's one of the reasons why the main actors in that project, the former aviation minister, Hadi Sirika, is being charged to court. He is defending himself with his daughter in court. Right now, billions of naira was poured into that project. And at the end of the day, what we saw at the airport was Ethiopian Airways with Nigeria Air flag. And even the other day I was traveling, and I passed the airport, and I could see a part of the airport where you had a signboard, like Air Nigeria. You saw Air Nigeria, and you're wondering, Air Nigeria? There is no Air Nigeria. And so I think this speaks to the lack of thoroughness of government and the lack of transparency, and the fact that anybody, any public official can take decisions recklessly and spend government money recklessly and walk away without thinking about the implications, without thinking about how this impacts the country, without thinking about, you know, what impression
Dr.
does this give?
Sorry to cut you. Do you think it's more of no fear of consequences? Because you can't really scam the country into saying, okay, look, we're going to do Air Nigeria, we're going to have a national carrier, and just not do it because we can see that we don't have Air Nigeria.
Yes, it is part of it. There are very little consequences for bad behavior. Okay, so now the former minister has gotten bail. So he's probably in his house, chilling, having a nice time. We do not know whether this case will be pursued to logical conclusions. In the past, you have people, they have a plea bargain, they ask them to bring back some money, they keep the rest, and they walk away. And this happens over and over again. So there is a lot that needs to change in public service. And that is why Labour, for instance, will say, we need this increase because there's so much wastage going on, there's so much stealing going on, and you're telling us that you cannot increase the wages of workers. No, that is rubbish. You have to do something about it. So we need a lot of cleaning up to do in our public sector, in government, and to make sure that the officials that are there actually are working for the country and not for themselves.
And then aside that, the political players earn so much, the disparity is so huge, and you're telling Labour they can't be paid that, is coming to a meeting point. A story on the Punch, AGF, of course, the story has been ongoing, the federal government suing the governors. One can't really understand that they should let the LGs have autonomy financially, and why the governors are hell-bent on, you know, having this double account and giving local governments a pittance, as it were, the base of government. You can't understand it. So AG wrong to join Lagos in LG funds suit. This is someone who's speaking. And then there's the story on power. 12 billion spent annually on airports, FD considers solar. And then the Children's Day story, President Governor's promise, better future, where in Vanguard you have 32-point-something% of children in labor, in forced labor, you know. You take your pick.
Do you see the local government story? It's been a running battle between local government officials and the state governors. When you go to many states, you know, the LGs are in the pockets of the governors. The offices are shut. There's nothing much happening there because they corner all the resources and they use it without any transparency, and you know the local government chairman literally have no say, and so they're asking for independence. That independence is necessary because the local government levels are closer to the people, and so you want to see some kind of activity that directly impacts people. At the same time, you also do not want local government chairmen that become monsters. You actually need that accountability. If they become independent, will they use their offices judiciously? When you get that resources that comes from the federal purse, will you, use it properly for the reasons?
But then, that's the second discussion. Give them what is theirs.
Definitely.
Before we begin to talk about, that's again, that falls on our system, our law system. Find a way to make officials, it's not only at local government levels, to make people, we're just talking about the Air Nigeria, make people stop pilfering funds, fraudulent activities, but let the local government have their money.
That's right. And there should be accountability on all levels, whether it's federal, state, and local government. Every Nigerian, we always say, the federal government is the problem. Every Nigerian, wherever you find yourself, you are the change you're looking for. When you sit on that seat, when you get that position, what do? Everything that every single one of us does, I think it culminates, and becomes a mass, when it gets to a critical mass, and it affects all of us. So if we do right by us, it is for us all.
Well said, Dr. Ikukwan. Speaking of change, the presidential candidate of Labour Party, Peter Obi, says on the issue of a merger, coming together of parties, he's up for it only if it will make a better Nigeria. What are your thoughts on Peter Obi's comments? Well,
Peter Obi has always said that he's not desperate to be president. He's always only interested in serving. And those two people, Peter Obi and Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, they have come a long way. Peter Obi was his vice president, presidential candidate in 2019. Of course, they parted ways because of ambitions. Atiku wanted to be president. Peter Obi wanted to be president and felt like he had, the political capital to go it alone. Now, I think both of them are thinking and reviewing what happened in the past, where they made mistakes. There are ways they can work together. It's either they work together or not. The point then is, for most of their followers, is that the APC has been a disaster largely for the country. What do they do about it? What actions can they take to make sure that the APC doesn't win the next elections? There's quite a bit of a time to go on this topic in terms of, alignments and realignments for 2027 and even beyond that. So we will be seeing more on the story.
Yeah, definitely. And Nigerians will be talking about it.
Yes.
Let's go internationally a wee bit. The Times is talking about, you see Sunak there seeming to play football, whether he's supporting Arsenal or Man U or Man City, I don't know. But City figures back Labour with call for new outlook. 120 business leaders write letter to the Times. Sunak pledges £100 tax cut for pensioners. But there's a story here, warning of civil unrest over new EU border rules.
Yes, so on the EU border rules, there will be new measures coming into place in October, and it's for non-EU passport holders. The United Kingdom, Brexit, left the EU, so this pertains to them, and they're saying that now non-EU passport holders, when they get to the airport, they have to have their fingerprints taken, photos taken, and there are concerns that there will be delays and processes that might complicate issues. So there are concerns that the government really needs to take care to make sure that this does not lead to breakdown of law and order, public disorder, and things like that. So I mean, this is what the UK gets for leaving the EU. The EU is a big area where there should be movement, is a movement of goods and services and people to make life easier, and to boost the market for the European Union. They have decided to leave the EU, so they would live with the consequences, and this is what it's going to be. And then this also brings us back home to the African continent, where we still need passports majorly all across the continent. We are still operating on colonial borders. The other day, Mr. Dangote was talking about needing over 30 passports to travel across Africa. Before colonialism, we didn't have those borders. Do we continue to keep them? Because, it sort of, keeps us down. It makes it difficult for goods to move, for services to move, for people to move, for talent and capital to move. It is in the interest of African countries to bring the borders down. You know, it might seem simple, it sounds simple. There are, you know, a lot of work to be done, a lot of processes to be followed through.
But it is possible.
It is important. Yes, it is possible. You know, the man in South Africa has been singing and saying, this is something Africans need to do, bring the borders down.
Thank you so much, Dr. Constance Ikuku, for your insights this early morning on Daybreak. And that's our press review. For more, you can follow us
Take it up
on X at Arise.